In 1903, the United States Department of Agriculture catalogued 7,262 distinct varieties of vegetable seeds available to American farmers and gardeners. That number comes from a formal USDA inventory conducted by researcher W.W.W. Tracy, and it represents something that is difficult to fully comprehend from where we stand today. Not 7,262 vegetables, 7,262 distinct varieties of vegetables, 408 different kinds of tomato, 497 kinds of lettuce, 500 varieties of cabbage, 307 varieties of corn, each one the result of generations of selection, adaptation, and careful saving by farmers and families who understood that a seed was not just a product, but a living record of everything a plant had learned about how to survive in a particular place under particular conditions. By 1983, the Rural Advancement Foundation International compared that same USDA catalog to the National Seed Storage Laboratory and found that 94% of the varieties from 1903 were no longer available through commercial sources. In 80 years, the commercial seed system had replaced the work of centuries of agricultural selection with a narrow range of varieties bred not for taste, not for resilience, not for adaptation to local soil and climate, but for uniformity, shelf life, and compatibility with industrial harvest equipment. The tomato that can survive a cross-country truck journey, the corn that ripens all at once so a single machine pass can take the whole field, the cucumber bred to the exact diameter that fits a commercial processing line. The Amish families in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and Holmes County, Ohio, never switched. They still plant the same tomato varieties their great-grandparents brought from Europe. They still save seeds from their best plants every fall, dry them on paper, store them in envelopes in cool, dry places, and plant them again the following spring. They have been doing this without interruption while the commercial seed industry went through a century of consolidation, patent acquisition, and genetic narrowing. And their gardens, by every measure that matters to someone who actually eats the food they grow, produce results that the seed catalog cannot replicate. By the time this video is done, you are going to understand exactly why heirloom seeds outperform modern hybrid varieties in the home garden, what happens inside the plant that makes locally adapted open-pollinated seed genetically superior for home-growing purposes, why the commercial seed system is structurally incapable of producing what heirloom seed saving produces, and how to get started saving your own seed from any heirloom variety in your garden this season. The distinction between heirloom seeds and modern hybrid seeds begins with pollination. An heirloom variety is open-pollinated. This means that its seeds are produced by natural pollination, by bees, wind, insects, or the plant's own self-pollination mechanisms, and that those seeds, when planted, will produce a plant that closely resembles the parent. The genetic information is stable across generations. A Brandywine tomato grown from seed, saved from a Brandywine tomato, will produce another Brandywine tomato. Not a guarantee of exact uniformity, because open-pollinated plants do carry genetic variation within the population, but a reliable reproduction of the essential characteristics that define the variety. A modern hybrid, designated F1 on seed packaging, is produced through deliberate controlled cross-pollination between two carefully selected parent plant lines. The first-generation offspring of that cross express what plant breeders call hybrid vigor, a temporary boost in performance that comes from the combination of two different genetic lines. Hybrid tomatoes can produce heavy yields. They can be highly disease-resistant. They can ripen uniformly and ship without bruising. But when you save seed from an F1 hybrid and plant it, what you get is not the parent plant. It is an unpredictable assortment of the genetic traits from both grandparent lines, something agronomists call F2 segregation. The plant breeders who develop that hybrid spend years and significant resources developing and maintaining the two parent lines. The seed company sells you the first generation cross each year. If you want the same result next season, you buy more seeds. This is not a side effect of the system, it is the system. Cornell University's agricultural education program puts it plainly. Hybrid seeds are created by crossing the genes from carefully bred parent plants. The parent plants are usually carefully guarded genetic secrets and must be cross-pollinated each year. This arrangement transfers the generational knowledge embedded in seed from the farmer's pocket to the corporation's proprietary database. The farmer who grows a hybrid saves seed and plants. It is not replicating the variety. They are generating an unpredictable crop. The farmer who wants the same result next year must purchase again. Madison Agriculture, which tracks the history of American seed policy, notes that until the turn of the 20th century, it was common practice for farmers to select, save, and share seeds from their best crops each year to plant for the following season. In 1839, Congress funded a program that mailed seed packages to farmers across the country for free, encouraging them to test and save from whatever grew best in their fields. That program produced some of the heirloom varieties still grown today. The first commercial hybrid corn seed appeared in the early 1920s. Within a generation, the practice of saving seed had been substantially displaced in commercial agriculture. It is never fully recovered at the commercial level. At the home garden level, the Amish communities carried it forward without interruption and are today among the most important living repositories of locally adapted open-pollinated seed in the eastern United States. Now here is the deeper reason why heirloom seeds outperform hybrids in the home garden, and it is a reason that almost no commercial seed marketing will ever have an incentive to explain to you. Open-pollinated varieties, when grown in the same location across multiple generations, and when seed is saved from the best-performing plants each season, undergo a continuous process of local adaptation. This is not a slow or theoretical process. It is measurable, and it happens within a relatively small number of generations. When you plant the same open-pollinated tomato variety in your garden year after year, saving seed from the plants that set fruit earliest, that handled the drought week in July best, that showed the least disease pressure in your specific humid or dry or cold spring climate, you are selecting for performance in your specific conditions. The population of that variety in your hands, after several seasons of this selection, is better adapted to your garden than any variety developed in a breeding program located somewhere else and sold to a national market. This is not something that can happen with hybrid seed because the genetic stability required for local adaptation does not exist in F1 crosses. Each generation of F2 segregation produces a different genetic assortment. There is no cumulative selection possible. The starting point is reset every year by a new purchase. An Amish family growing the same open-pollinated tomato variety in Holmes County for 4 generations has, through consistent seed saving from their best plants, developed a population of that variety that is specifically tuned to Holmes County soil, Holmes County frost dates, Holmes County disease pressure, and Holmes County rainfall patterns. You cannot buy that at the garden center. You cannot replicate it in a breeding program. It is the product of patient observation and consistent selection across decades, and it lives in the seed. The flavor difference between heirloom varieties and hybrid varieties is not a matter of nostalgia or subjective preference. It is a structural consequence of what each type of variety was bred to optimize. Hybrid tomatoes bred for the commercial supply chain are selected primarily for uniform ripening, firm flesh that resists bruising during transport, and extended shelf life at room temperature. These traits require a specific balance of sugar content, acid content, and cell wall structure. The tomato that can sit in a truck for 3 days and arrive at a store looking presentable is not the same tomato that has been selected for maximum flavor in a kitchen garden 60 feet from a farmhouse kitchen. The Brandywine tomato, an heirloom variety that has been in continuous cultivation since at least the 1880s, has a high acid and sugar content, thin skin, irregular shape, and soft flesh that makes it entirely unsuitable for commercial distribution. It bruises at a touch. It cracks in rain. It does not hold its shape. It is, by every metric the commercial system uses to evaluate a tomato, a failure. It is also, by every metric, a person who eats food uses to evaluate a tomato, exceptional. The same structural difference applies across virtually every vegetable category. Heirloom varieties were selected by home gardeners and farm families for the qualities that matter at the dinner table. Hybrids are selected by commercial breeders for the qualities that matter at the distribution center. These are not the same qualities, and the seed that serves one purpose serves the other only by accident. Now here is how to get started saving heirloom seed, because the practice is simpler than most people assume, and the savings over even a few seasons are significant. Start with tomatoes. Because tomatoes are the easiest vegetable for seed saving and the variety where the difference between heirloom and hybrid is most immediately apparent in taste. Choose any labeled heirloom variety. Brandywine, Cherokee Purple, Black Crim, Mortgage Lifter, Yellow Pear, Green Zebra. All of these are open-pollinated varieties with long histories and well-documented performance characteristics. Plant them this season. Grow them exactly as you normally would. At harvest, identify your 2 or 3 best-performing plants. Best performing means earliest to set fruit, most productive, best flavor, best disease resistance. These are the plants you are selecting for. Do not save seed from the first fruit that ripens. Let the plant go through a full season and identify which plants consistently outperform the others. From your best plants, select 2 or 3 fruits to let fully ripen to the point of being overripe. The seed inside a tomato is fully mature when the fruit is past peak eating quality. Scoot the seed mass and gel into a small glass jar. Add an equal volume of water. Let it sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 days, stirring once daily. This fermentation process mimics the natural breakdown of the gel coating in the soil and removes the germination inhibitor that surrounds each seed. After 2 to 3 days, the viable seeds will have sunk to the bottom and a layer of mold and non-viable material will float on top. Pour off the liquid and floating material. Rinse the remaining seeds under running water in a fine mesh strainer. Spread them in a single layer on a ceramic plate or a piece of wax paper. Do not use paper towels because the seeds will bond to the fibers and tear when you try to remove them. Let them dry completely in a location with good air circulation out of direct sun for 1 to 2 weeks. When fully dry, the seeds will not bend. They will snap or crumble if pressed. Store them in a small paper envelope labeled with the variety name and the year. Keep the envelopes in a cool, dark, dry location. A glass jar with a tight lid, kept in a cool cabinet, will preserve viability for 3 to 5 years in most conditions. The following spring, plant those seeds. Observe your plants, save from the best performers again. Do this consistently for 3 to 5 seasons, and you will have a tomato variety that is meaningfully better adapted to your specific garden than any variety you can purchase from a national seed catalog. This is what the Amish families in Lancaster County have been doing without interruption for generations. Their seeds are not magic. They are the product of consistent, patient observation and selection. The knowledge of how to do it is not complicated. It is just not available in the commercial seed industry's interest to teach. I want to be honest about the 93% seed loss figure that circulates widely in discussions of this topic, because the Plain Folk Secrets brand is built on giving you the accurate version of the truth rather than the dramatic one. The Rural Advancement Foundation study that produced that number has been critiqued by University of Georgia researchers Philip Heald and Susanna Chapman, who found that while 94% of the specific 1903 varieties were no longer available through commercial sources, the total number of vegetable varieties available to gardeners has not dramatically decreased when smaller seed companies, preservation organizations, and seed exchange networks are included in the count. What has happened is a profound shift in where those varieties live. In 1903, seed diversity was distributed across millions of farm households, saved year to year, adapted to local conditions. Today, much of that diversity exists in seed banks, specialty catalogs, and preservation organizations rather than in active cultivation on working land. The shift from save seed in a farmer's pocket to archive seed in an institution is a real and significant change in food system resilience, even if the absolute count of varieties available has not collapsed as dramatically as the most cited number suggests. The Amish families in Holmes County are not waiting for a seed bank to preserve what they grow. They are preserving it by planting it every spring, saving from their best performers every fall, and passing those envelopes of seed to their children and their neighbors. That living preservation is what creates locally adapted seed. No institution can replicate it because local adaptation requires continuous cultivation in a specific place by people who observe and select with knowledge of that place. A seed stored in a bank is preserved but not adapted. It is a photograph. A seed in a farmer's envelope selected from this year's best plants is a living organism being continually refined by experience. I have been collecting knowledge like this for a long time, not from seed catalogs or gardening magazines, but from the families still practicing what was universal practice in American agriculture before the commercial seed industry displaced it. A full collection of practical methods for home food growing and seed saving is in a written guide. The link is in the description. If starting with a packet of open-pollinated tomato seed this season and saving from your best performers sounds like the beginning of something, the guide covers the rest of the garden and the rest of the house with the same depth and the same commitment to giving you the accurate truth rather than the comfortable one. Next week, I am covering something documented in old Mennonite household records that addresses the single most common reason saved heirloom seeds failed to germinate in the second season, a storage mistake that costs gardeners their entire seed collection without them ever knowing what went wrong. It involves humidity, and the fix costs nothing. Subscribe so you do not miss it. The 7,000 varieties in the 1903 USDA catalog were not created by corporations or preserved in institutions. They were created by farmers saving seed from their best plants and sharing what worked with their neighbors, season after season, generation after generation, in gardens and on farms across every climate zone in this country. That knowledge did not disappear. The Amish family still practicing it prove that every time they open an envelope in the spring and put last year's best seed into the ground. All you have to do is start.